When I moved to Marin, there was a watercolor society that I joined, and I love watercolor. I thought, well, if I'm going to learn to paint, just because I can draw doesn't mean that you can paint. My name is Florence Rosella Spanier, Anderson Spanier, I should say, because I was Anderson before I got married. And I'm now 100 years old and 6 months, something like that, because my birthday was last December on the 22nd, and I had quite a celebration before that here in Rossmore. I was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where many Swedes went from Sweden in the early days because there's so much like Sweden itself with so many lakes. And the weather was very much like Sweden. It was just like a small continuation of Sweden. And but in 1929, the crash came, and everybody was committing suicide because they lost all their money, things like that. And my dad was in business. He had his own trunk business. He made trunks for the old antique cars. He had the metal racks to put on the back because cars weren't made with trunks attached. You had to buy your trunks from a dealer. Well, my dad made the trunks, and he made suitcases to fit inside the trunks so that they'd have storage for their suitcases as well. So, yeah, and then when the crash came, he had to go bankrupt. He had so many orders to fill because everything was so prosperous. Everybody was making so much money that yeah, they couldn't take it when they lost it all at once. So, you know, that's why it was so bad. So he had to go bankrupt, but he kept track of all the names of the people that he owed money to. He felt morally responsible for that. So it wasn't until 1949 that he had enough money to pay back all these people that he thought he owed. And of course, people being people the way they are, some of them, you might know it's like people today that are the same way. Some of them are so thankful that and they needed the money, so they took the money. But then there was one that said, "Oh, you don't owe it. That was years ago. Forget it." And they wouldn't take any money. That was it. People like that. Then there was a family that had passed away, and there was the children that were left that were related to the ones that he owed the money to. And they said, "Where's the interest?" So you see, there's all kinds of people. That's an example, really, of people today. You'll find all kinds. Mm-hmm. And that was, so which person do you want to be like in your life? It's a lesson. Mm-hmm. So. Okay, I want to tell you that there was 5 in our family. I had an older brother and a sister and myself, and then 2 brothers. I was in the middle, exactly. My oldest brother was 8 years older than me, and my youngest brother was 8 years younger than me. So I felt it was a perfect spot to be because I learned a lot from my sister and my brother what not to do to annoy my parents. They were so loving, and they were taking care of us the best they could. And at an early age, I appreciated that. So, but then in Minneapolis, when the crash came and my dad, went out of business, we gathered up all our things because he heard that California didn't have any problems with this recession. And so we gathered all our things and drove cross country to California on a 2-lane road And we were told and got advice from people that had driven on it to be careful, to help anybody that's in trouble on the way, because there's, there weren't enough gas stations or places to help. So you had to help each other the best you could. So that's what you did. So we made it across the country. We got to Nevada there just before the snow was going to start. So it was getting cold. We were glad to leave it there and before it got bad to be like the Donner Party years ago. But and got to California just in time for the recession to begin in California. It just took a while for all those problems to come from the East Coast all the way across the country to California. And then, but when we got to California, it was beginning to improve in Minnesota. So if we had stayed there, we would have been better off. But we didn't know that. There we were in California, and we had to try to suffer through the problems of getting a job. And my mother worked for doing some housework for 25 cents an hour. And somebody would come along and say, I'll do it for 15 cents an hour. So, there was problems. And my dad tried to get a job, and he got one in the place making suitcases, but he didn't like it because it was mass production, and all they wanted him to do was the same thing every day, and he didn't like that. After all, he had done everything from scratch and in his own shop. And so he got away from that line of business in Charlie and started to go into painting and decorating. But then when I was little there, I was about 8 years old when we went to California. So I had been drawing in school, and my girlfriends would want me to draw, fill up a whole drawing book of people so they could put clothes on them, dresses on them. So I made a lot of nudes for the kids, for my friends. And then when they were worried when the teacher would confiscate them because they were fooling around with the tablets that I had been drawing. And but they had already put clothes on them, so they were okay. Yeah. Oh, crazy times. But I knew then that when I was a kid, I'm going to be an artist, all right. But I'm not going to be famous until after I'm dead, I thought. Because here I am. How old was I? I didn't worry about getting famous or doing anything like promoting myself, because I felt that it wasn't, I could concentrate on doing artwork. I didn't worry about getting myself known. I didn't care. Mm-hmm. I just didn't care. And I did what I enjoyed doing. And so I did so many different things. I love to do people all the time. So I love to draw and try to get a likeness. And I was able to get a likeness at a very young age. When I was in high school, I took art all the way through, and they had no program for the senior year. And this was in 1938, 39. Mm-hmm. And the teacher said to me, well, I don't have any program for you. What do you want to do? And I told her I wanted to draw all the students in the class. I want to draw everybody. Okay, she said. So she had the kids had to sit for me. Some of the boys objected. They didn't want to sit there still while I was going to draw them. And later on, I didn't care whether they moved or not, but because I liked them. And later on in life, I found it was much better to sketch people while they're talking to me, so I can get their action and how they feel about things. If they're thinking about something that's special, they're going to get this special look on their face. And then if you can capture that, you got it made. And so that's what I enjoy doing. And that's what I try to do on the cruise ships. So for about 16 years, I was on, not all the time, but during that time, I was on several different cruise ships. And I would do the passengers, and I always had them talking to me while I was doing. I didn't want them to sit still because that's what you would get, somebody sitting still.
Mm-hmm.
So while they're talking and smiling or thinking about something, pleasant, I did one lady that she was annoyed at her partner because her partner had left her to do her own thing, and she didn't want to do that. She wanted to be with her all the time, and the other one wanted to be by herself. See, so she was really annoyed that she was alone. So I told her, I said, I don't want to sketch you when you're mad. I told her.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, she was puckering up her face and trying to make herself smile. It was really funny, really. So try not to be mad. Oh dear. But that's one thing that stuck in my mind. I could remember that forever. Oh dear. Well, when I met my husband, I had met him when I was only 13. I knew his sister. His sister, because he was almost 10 years older than me, 9 years older than me. So I thought he was my friend's big brother. I'd see him, when I went over to visit her all the time. I thought he was a nice big brother, and she was always annoyed at him because he's always telling her what to do, But I thought, I wouldn't mind. I thought he was okay. But then, some years later, I had moved away from San Francisco to Daly City, and I used to send her penny postcards. And I could write I'd write what I was doing and different things. I had activities. I filled up the penny postcard and he would read them. He'd get them out of the mailbox, and he'd read these cards for me, and he kept saying to her, well, when are you going to see Florence? He thought this was, I would be good. I would be a good person for his sister to behave, and he's a good influence on her. Yeah, it's so funny, really. And so then later on, I was playing the violin at the Junior Symphony in San Francisco. And there was
I didn't know you played the violin.
I did play the violin at one time, but I got that. I was so lucky. There was a teacher that just was new to the school, and he wanted to start an orchestra. There was none. There didn't have any orchestra. So he said, in the auditorium, when we had a big meeting, he said to the whole school, if any students want to learn to play the violin, let me know. You can meet at my place on Saturday, and we'll start lessons because I want to start an orchestra, he said. So I thought, I went home and talked to my dad. He had an old violin, and so I thought, well, what do you think? What do you think about me getting lessons on Saturday at the teacher's home? And they thought that was a good idea. I didn't know the violin was such an old violin, and it wasn't a very good one, but it was okay. I could take it. Mm-hmm. I took it, and so I started. I went to his house. I went every week for a lesson. That fantastic. If you can imagine having a teacher work with you every week for an hour or two, really, and mm-hmm. you're bound to improve. Mm-hmm. And even though I had a lousy violin, it sounds so bad when kids start. Uh-huh. It's hard to get used to playing a violin because you don't sound good enough. Mm-hmm. You don't want to listen to yourself. Mm-hmm. Well, my violin was bad to begin with. So, because later on the teacher says, hey, let me see your violin. And he played a couple of notes, and he says, oh, oh, he says, use my violin. So I played with his violin after that. And what a difference it made, really. It's interesting. But we had a show in San Francisco, and he at that time played in the San Francisco marching band an oboe, and I didn't know he played I never heard him play because he got rid of it later, but he came because somebody told him that somebody in the orchestra there had reeds for the oboe that were very good, and he could get for playing his instrument. And then he knew that I was there because he saw on my penny postcards that I had sent that I was going to be in this program. So she was going to get married at 17. She was going to get married, and he was going to have a big shower for her. So he was inviting me to the shower, and then he'd come and pick me up. So that's what he did. He came and picked me up. And when I was, I was 17. We were both 17, with the same age. And so that's really how I met him. And so he picked me up, and then later on when he picked me up to take me to the wedding, and I told my parents I might be later tonight because they have the reception. So because he picked me up, and then he took me for a ride. I lived in Daly City, and there in Millbrae, before you get to Burlingame, up in the hills there was an old mansion that had been made into a nightclub, and they had movies there from Hollywood. They had it was quite, people would go there just because of it. They knew that these movies had been set there at that mansion. I don't remember the name of it actually now. I'm sure it's all gone. But it had a courtyard in the middle, and I remember going up in the balcony. We looked down in the courtyard. There's somebody playing the violin, walking around in the club. So I was naturally interested and leaned over, and he kissed me. The first time he kissed me. And I was so surprised, but that got me. That got me started. So yeah, that was really crazy. But I never should have gotten married so young. Got married a year later, when I was 18, we got married. But I always felt I wasn't, later on when I was raising children, I didn't have enough experience. I couldn't advise my daughter when she had boyfriends and was breaking up with them. I didn't know how to help her with getting over the turmoil she was going through, because I never did. See, I was so busy at school. I did get good grades, and I practicing the violin. I didn't have time. I didn't look at anybody. I didn't have the experience of dating young boys my age at all. And that, I feel, even at this age, I'm 100 years old, and I feel that was a mistake. I should have had gone longer. I should have more experience working. I got a scholarship and went to cosmetology school, which is now in college. At that time it wasn't in college, we called it beauty school. Mm-hmm. And I worked, and I got my license to work, but my husband was a chauvinist. You don't work. My wife does not work. You can't work. And here I had the credentials, I had my license. I was getting phone calls from the school because they knew what kind of work I did, and I had to tell them I had to say no. And I felt that wasn't right. Mm-hmm. But see, when in hindsight, I would never argue with him. I saw my mother and dad get along so beautifully, and they never had any arguments. I never argued with my husband. I went along with all of that stuff. And then later on, then when you're being raised by your husband, in a way, 10 years older than me, he was guiding me through those years. But that wasn't that was too bad. My parents were too religious. Everything was a sin. So, dancing was a sin. All these things were. That's hard for a kid. Mm-hmm. I used to say, "Where's the sin? Where is it? I don't see it." What in the world are they talking about? And I went to my mother when I was in Minneapolis. Had a sister that lived there and invited me over to stay a weekend with her. But my cousin was already grown up and wasn't home, so she didn't have any kids. So I was lonesome because there was no kids. And here I was used to having my brothers and sister, but she took me to a beauty shop and had my hair done and had me all dressed up in a pretty dress. She was having a card party that night, and my parents told me, "Oh, playing cards is a sin." So I looked around the room, and I thought, everybody's happy, having a good time. Now, where's the sin? Where's the sin? And I don't remember. I must have told my parents about it, saying, "Where's the sin?" when I got home, because then I never went to my aunt's house again. What a shame. What a shame. But, but I love my parents. So I felt that they were I really respected them. So I didn't object like my older brother and sister did. Because I felt that they were hurt. So I saw how they reacted for the rebelling. Mm-hmm. But you couldn't. But in my mind, I thought, well, when I get older, I'll do my own thing. I don't have to. I can stand it. I can do it. I can do it until. And then when I got married, that was my cue to do it my own thing. Mm-hmm. Still, that was, that's life. What are you going to do? You do the best you can.
Yeah.
All your life, you do the best you can.
Right.
My husband, when I married him, at first he was working with the government doing he finally quit and worked with his uncle because they weren't giving him the recognition that he felt that he should have, but he didn't have the college education to demand it, the recognition. And because he didn't have that, he never got it. So he just quit. And because he was doing like camouflage work over the guns in San Francisco, over Fort Cronkite and Fort another one over there, and but then when the war started, they called him back to finish up what he had started. So he did that, but then during the war, his uncle Tim Sullivan, a good Irishman, had an awning company with his mother. They had started in 1922, and so they started doing war work. When the ships came in, they got the bunk bottoms and cleaned the bunk bottoms, and they had to repair all the life preservers, which got damaged, and they had to be repaired. So he couldn't get any workers because all the guys had joined the service. So it was so hard. He got high school kids to come and try to do the work. Some kids are good and some aren't. Just like like I was telling you, some are good workers, and they wanted me to work too. At that time, he was going to let me work with the government. But then, when they wouldn't, these high school kids were getting a salary, and because I was a girl, I was going to get less, and I was working harder than they were. So I quit. I said, "Hey, this isn't right," and so I was ahead of my time. But yeah, it's yeah. I thought, hey, that it wasn't right.
No.
And it still isn't right,
No.
if there are any places that do stuff like that. So you'd think it would be over by now. Yeah, I'm 100 years old. You'd think that wouldn't exist anymore. But who knows?
Yeah.
Exactly. But so, and then that was during the wartime. He was doing all that stuff, and then at the same time, as a hobby for him, he was working on camouflage on his own, trying to figure out a better system for the camouflage. And he had a good thing going, and he got a patent on it. And but then all of a sudden, the government came out with an offer, wanted to make bids on getting a study for research and development of a new system for the camouflage. And so he tried that. He entered that, and his application was so good, he got the job. So that's why he worked on camouflage for the government, and he worked it out. We figured he had it made. He had a patent on it. The government, at the end of the whole trip, the government wouldn't recognize the patent. So that was crazy. He couldn't get a lawyer. They said, "You can sue us. You've got permission to sue us. You can sue us." But they weren't going to honor the patent. So you couldn't get a lawyer. No lawyer would fight the government at that time. Well, even today, I guess you don't.
Mm-hmm.
You don't fight the government.
Mm-hmm.
So we said, "Oh, forget it, just forget it." And so that's what we did. But they gave us permission to do work for other countries if they were on our list. Well, they had a list where we could go and where we couldn't go. We could not go to South Africa at that time, but we could go to Iran. So we went to Iran. We took a trip and we met the people. They wanted some of the camouflage. So we did an order of camouflage for Iran. And we had to go over there. We were over there for about 5 weeks.
Who all went on that trip?
My son Tom and Joe and I. And I went because I was helping them with the camouflage, actually, to get the colors to go to that area, the colors they would use for that country. So we took trips throughout the country to see the different countryside and how it went, and which part was desert. And so he had some nets that were reversible, winter on one side and summer on the other. And he was very clever, really. And so, but then when we got finished with the research and development that was done, then the government was going to have contracts for different companies to produce it. So we weren't big enough. Our company was too small to do these huge orders that they had. And so these other big companies, like the tire companies, the other big companies took over.
B.F. Goodrich.
Their names don't come to me now, so I can't tell you what they are. But my son would know. But he's in Solvang. He's moved to Solvang. So yeah, that's another story, I guess. But we met some wonderful people. The people that we met there were that we were there when the Shah was alive, which is quite different than today. And when the Shah was ousted, and they had this other guy come in, the Huda Khan, I think that was his name.
Khomeini.
Yeah, and I think his name was, yeah. Oh boy, I remember driving in San Anselmo on a hot day. My windows are open and I had the radio on, and I was reading all the tailgate signs in the cars ahead of me, and the tailgate in front of me, I had to sign it all out because it was all running together, you know. It says, the Houghton Common is a Asahola.
Oh.
And that was, and I said it out loud and I thought, oh my gosh, I was saying it, I was reading it out loud. I was in the car with all my windows open. Oh dear, yeah, I thought that, yeah.
So you sketched though in Iraq?
Yeah, I sketched over there, and when I sketched over there a lot too. I have my son has the tablet that I filled up because he said they wouldn't let me into the base because I was a woman. So I had to do all the drawings for them after they get back home, and then they were going to show them how to put the knits together because they were in sections. You could have a great big one, and you could look at. So I was drawing. I would draw the directions of how they would put them all together, and then the next day there'd be something else I needed to sketch. So during the day I was free. So and it was safe. I could go all around Tehran and visit all the mosques, the different places where tourists like to go, and I could get the finger cap. And I knew a couple of words so that I knew where to go to get back. And I'd say, Farsi na nidunam, I don't know Farsi, I can't speak Farsi. So, you could get along.
Mm-hmm.
You could get along, but there weren't many people that spoke English. And the ones that could speak English were so excited to meet somebody that spoke English because they could practice.
Yeah.
That if you met them, you'd be fine during the day. And you usually did. They'd hang out on these places where tourists go because they wanted to bump into somebody so they could practice their English. So that worked.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
So how old were you when your husband died?
Well, he died when he was 85. So I was 10, what was I?
75.
74, or what it was, 75, 76, something like that. And so, yeah. Then, but I had been to a cruise to go around the Panama Canal. And I tried to get my husband to go with because I know that he always said one thing he wanted to do was go through the Panama Canal, and here was his chance. And he refused to go with me. He just said no, he didn't want to go. So I got a friend who was that I had met on another cruise that lived in Walnut Creek here, Nancy Dooley. She was a lawyer here, and she went with me. And it was a nice. I knew her for years afterwards. She just passed away a few months ago. And so
is that where you first started sketching on cruise ships?
Well, I had been doing it. See, I started in 91. I started sketching on cruise ships in 91. I was already in my 70s when I started, and I kept it up until I was about 86. So they never asked me how old I was, but I wrote down the year I was born. I never lied about it. I never said anything, but because I was telling everybody I was 39 for so many years, I forgot how old I was. And I really did forget how old I was. And so, yeah, at the DMV, when I went there to get my driver's license changed 1 year, when I was 45, yeah, she said, "How old are you?" And I said, 39. And then she says, "Oh no, you know, you're," and she looked at the thing, and when I tried to guess at it, and I said, "Oh, 34, 47," and she looked, "Oh no, you're only 45," she said. So I said, "Oh, wow, okay, thanks." She gave me a couple of years, yeah. And then I forgot. Yeah, I never thought about my age at all, and it's still hard for me to think that I'm as old as I am. So I am.
Yeah.
But you know, I can't help it. There you are. You have to keep your sense of humor, or you'll flip. You know, and yeah, if I made it this age, well, I did. So, but then at the church here in Rossmore, there's a guy that's 91, 92 now, I think, and he's the one that lights the candles for the service there, because it's all old people here in Rossmore, and I think about it, it's usually little kids come and light the service, but now they've all moved to Lafayette, and the ones that go here, and I'm back to this church that I was going to when I first moved here. I hear voices.
I do too.
Yeah, let's
That was the apostolic faith, which is a very, my daughter called it legalistic, and she didn't go to that religion herself.
Legalistic?
Yeah, that's what my daughter called it.
I wonder what that means.
That everything has to be just so, you know. And so my daughter didn't do that, but had a strong belief in God. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, when she was on her deathbed, really, she said, "Mom, it's a win-win." I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "Well, if the Lord heals me, if He doesn't heal me, I can go to her granddaughter's wedding in Scotland. I can, or I can go to her grandson's wedding in San Francisco. So, and if He doesn't, I'll go to a better place," she says. So, and she was smiling and happy all the time, and so you went to see her, and you couldn't show her that you were unhappy because she was so sick. You know, she had it went from one cancer to another, and just until finally it went to her brain, and but she died before we could see the effects of it on her brain. Thank God for that.
Yeah.
Because my husband had the blastoma, or whatever you call it, that on his brain, and that was that. You don't wish that on anybody.
Yeah.
You know? Well, you don't wish anything like that on anybody.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah. When I first knew her, when I was only 13, she was already drinking beer, and I think you couldn't buy beer. The kids couldn't buy beer. But she had some friends. She had some friends that were smoking and doing that. So she did, but I didn't. I thought, well, I didn't care that they did it. Didn't bother me. I just didn't like the smell of it. I tried to smoke with my girlfriends. Went into the gas station and the girls' room. The two of us had cigarettes, but I never wanted to inhale, because I knew if you inhaled you'd get sick, and I didn't want to get sick. So I thought, oh heck, I'm not going to inhale. I'll just blow it out. So took it in, and so I never did. And then I didn't like the smell on my clothes. I didn't like it. I didn't like the aftertaste. I didn't like the. I thought, if I don't like it, I'm not going to do it. So I never smoked. And the religion had nothing to do with it. My parents said it was it was a sin. They really, my brother got a spanking, really when he was a little kid, he was smoking something, I don't know what it was, but, yeah, back at the, yeah. But my sister never smoked either. We just didn't like it. Didn't like the taste. And so at least, yeah, we looked out there.
So she was your best friend in high school?
Well, during that, yeah, I guess.
And she drank
no,
all
that
through
wasn't
high
high school. That was junior high.
Oh.
Yeah, junior high, and Everett Junior High School in San Francisco. Because when I left there, I was already a freshman in high school. But in San Francisco at that time, the schools only went up. They didn't. Yeah, high. Yeah. Yeah, it was a different system. You went to junior high school for an extra, for like the freshman year of high school.
Oh, uh-huh.
And then high school, you'd be a junior when you went in.
Sophomore.
So, but now I don't know how it is now, really. I haven't kept up with that because my kids are all grown now.
Yeah, who cares?
Yeah. And the grandchildren are grown too. Now like got some great grandchildren, and yeah, and now I have some great grandchildren. Really, so I can't keep up with how.
So how many kids? How many grandkids? How many great grandkids?
Yeah.
How many great?
Yeah, well, I had 13 or 16 grandchildren, but 3 of them were in the marriage, So the 13 blood grandchildren,
Oh, uh-huh.
And then I had from that after that, then for great grandchildren. My goodness, I had 36.
How many children did you have?
I had 4 to begin with, and then I had the 13 grandchildren, and then I had
4 children produce 13 grandchildren?
Well, wait a minute. Yeah, and then then my son, my oldest son has 15 grandchildren. Wait a minute, anyway, are they grandchildren or children? Oh boy, I tell you, after a while, you go nuts. Yeah, because it all adds up. He had 15, my daughter had 9, and my other son had 7. And the other one had 4. It adds up. It was adding up to about 36 great grandchildren, and then then the great grandchildren. Well, now, yeah. Let's see. Oh boy, my grandson's daughter is my great-granddaughter, and she has 4 children. So there's great-grandchildren. Now they moved to North Carolina, so I haven't seen them. I haven't seen those great-grandchildren. They didn't come out here for my
100th birthday.
100th birthday. It was a long way to go. Yeah. Oh well.
How was that for you, your 100th birthday party?
Well, it was terrific to see so many of my friends. They came with masks, a lot of them, and and I always appreciate it when they don't have masks on, because for so many years I like to see the faces, and that was my life.
Yeah.
Seeing faces. The faces were very important to me. And but all of them didn't. Then they took a big picture of everybody that was there. A couple of, I think there might be 1 or 2 that had to leave because of.
I was one of them that wasn't in the group picture, had to leave earlier.
Yeah, had to leave. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big gathering.
Yeah, it was a big gathering.
That was great.
And then one grandson. See, all my kids are married twice, and I was only married once. And yeah, let's see, my sister was only married once. My oldest brother was married. What was it? 3 times, I guess. And yeah, my youngest brother was only married once. But they're all I'm the only one left.
You outlived them all.
Yeah, they've all gone. My youngest brother left left last year. I mean, yeah. So, oh dear. So I'm the only one left. So. The drawing seemed to be the most important thing to me, but also when I moved to Marin, there was a watercolor society that I joined, and I loved watercolor. I thought, well, if I'm going to learn to paint, just because I can draw doesn't mean that you can paint.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to learn to mix the colors and all that. So I joined a watercolor group, and in Marin County, and I lived over there for 34 years, and it was a wonderful, wonderful group. And
what town did you live in?
And I lived in San Anselmo.
Uh-huh.
And there was one woman that led our group was from Sausalito. She was very good, and we used to go out to paint. We never painted in the studio. We went out to paint. And we'd go in groups to San Francisco or different places, and you'd see, at that time it was common to see several artists set up to paint an area. Here you don't see that much anymore. And now they call it plané. They give it the little finger look, and it's a special deal. That means you're painting out from life, outside. Well, hey, that's all we did. That's all we did is paint outside. We never painted inside. We always painted out. I went to Carmel every summer to a workshop there that with one artist that was from this area. I forget his name now, unfortunately. But we would be there all week. And every day he had other artists would do a demonstration, and so the whole group of us that came would stay in the cabins there in Carmel, and then we would meet with one artist on Monday and different one every day. They'd go to a special place that they had chosen to paint the area, and then they'd leave, and then we would paint that same area. And then that evening we'd meet in the big auditorium, and they would be up there, and we'd have to bring our painting up there and show. They'd critique it.
Mm-hmm.
And so every day it was a different location. But you learned a lot from the different artists, do different techniques. Some of them do wet and wet. There's so many different ways of doing a painting. So that was an excellent experience going there, doing that.
So from the time you were a child and first discovered your love of sketching was all you did until you started watercoloring?
Yeah, yeah. And then in Minneapolis when I was a kid, my younger brother, I didn't have any paper to draw on. And I couldn't ask my parents to buy me drawing paper. And I didn't even know drawing paper existed, really. So, but, my brother would go down the back alleys of businesses where they had thrown away their books, their order books and things, and there was all the blank paper on the back side. So he'd bring those over. Here's some paper for you, Florence, he'd say. So here I had that's what I used to draw on. These old catalogs, Yeah, what did I do? These, yeah. So, yeah.
That was your drawing
That was my
supplies.
drawing, that's what I used to draw. But I used just pencil, I didn't have anything else in those early days.
Well, tell me about this little book,
Okay.
the sketches.
Yeah, this little book, it's a book I got on one of my trips, I guess. It's very small. What does it measure? About,
I don't know, by
Well,
2 by 3, maybe?
yeah, very small. It's the smallest, this is the smallest that I've ever done in a drawing. I've always,
And can you take
through the years,
photographs of
I
each
take a
page?
tablet with me. And I'd have a nylon tip pen to draw with, because you don't want to erase, you don't want to make a mess. And I didn't use charcoal because it was messy, and pencils were smudgy too. So it was better to use ink and do it right the first time. And
And what did you
Yeah.
call that type of pen?
I had a nylon tip pen.
Nylon tip pen.
That's what I used to use, a little black pen. And I used that for many years.
And this was your husband on a skiing
And,
trip?
yeah, that's on the skiing trip. And so this is he taking a picture of this or not? I don't know.
He will.
Oh, yeah. And yeah. So we were at Squaw Valley, and I went up there and I had that in my pocket. So I pulled it out, and he was standing there, so I work fast. I was practicing and working fast, and was a big help. Anytime you're someplace where you're not supposed to sketch, and you can sketch fast, you can do it. You know, like in China. When I went to China, we were walking around the tomb of Beijing, the old one of the old leaders. He was on a big. There was a big platform, tiered, going up like steps, and then his throne was at the top, and carved, and he's sitting up there at the top. Well, we had, as a crowd, we were allowed to go in and see where his tomb in the other room, but his statue was there. So, but the crowd would split, and one would go on one side, and the other would go on the other. So I was staring at him as much as he could, because then when I got out of the place, then I sketched down what I could remember. But we used to have sessions like that, where we'd stare at our model and put a blanket over it, and then after staring at it for maybe 5 minutes, then you put the blanket over it, and then sketch what you remember, and you'll be surprised how much you forget in that time. So that you train yourself to see what's the important lines to remember, so that you can get the whole thing in. So I was able, actually, to get the whole sketch of the guy sitting on his crown there, and the stairs going up, and on the back of him was they had huge tapestries that were like landscapes of in China, and so I was able. And then when I got back to the bus, the people said, "Oh, you sketched it there," and I said, "No, I didn't do it there. I waited till I got back to the bus, and then I sketched it after being there." But see, that's the value of studying something for a long time and being able to get it in there, to get it down. A person can do that. Yeah, it just takes perseverance and practice. Then drawing a continuous line, like in the bathroom, I've got a nude there. It's a continuous line of the form, and you watch it, and you can get it down on paper, and no erasers, you just.
And this is a sketch you have in your bathroom?
Yeah, I've got one in the bathroom now. It's over toilet, I think. Yeah, that's, or else. Yeah, and then there's other, yeah, because I put nudes in the bathroom. She's sitting in front of, next to a mirror. So that's why there's two in there. I did her reflection right in back of her. So, and of course this is a pastel here. And then here's one that's just, yeah, this is the other one that's just one continuous line. And this is a watercolor that I took all my, this is from the island out from,
Oh, Catalina?
no, from on the East Coast, Bermuda.
Oh.
Yeah, and the rocks are like that, and the houses up on the top, they're colorful, they're red, and so this was on the side of a hill on this side, and I brought my stuff. Well, see, I could bring you could bring a lot of stuff with you in those days on the plane, and it was great. I'd bring my easel. I brought my work thing with me. Oh boy, it was neat. Yeah. So, but okay, I'll show you in here. Oh, these are, in here. Yeah. Let's see. There's you can see I didn't get her other eye in. And Gus was telling me, oh, that's okay. So, and this is some well, yeah, I was doing some sculpture things too, but most of those are.
You've done these since you lost your sight?
Yeah. And same thing with the one that's out there in the carport. Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm starting one here, but I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. Because here's the paint. Gus squeezes out the paint for me because I can't see the tubes. See? And so, what do I have here? Yeah, a sponge.
Oh
No,
yeah, I
this is a
see you
rag.
have sponges and.
Yeah. And I have to do it with peel. And then here's the colors are, yeah, I think, I mixed my own black. I got the black and the blue and the yellow and the red, and then I have some white here, I think. But it's getting hard now. It's a water-based oil, so I can leave it.
This is an interesting one, this yellow horse.
Yeah, that's a neat one. I did that from a drawing. I did a drawing in Australia. I stayed there was there for 3 months, and with a friend, and so bareback. It was bareback, and I did that on a. So these are, I'm trying. Well, see, you have to keep trying to do something. That's because Gus is reading a lot. I got to keep myself busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, start hurting.
Oh,
And so I have to listen to that. If I don't listen to that,
yeah.
then it gets so bad, then I'm no good.
Yeah.
So, so I just do a little bit and stop.
Yeah.
So that's why this is not, there's nothing else to do. I don't know what I'm going to do with this because don't have a plan ahead of time. But it's getting hard now.
Yeah.
It's a water-based oil, so I can leave it.
This is an interesting one, this yellow horse.
Oh, yeah, that's a neat one. I did that from a drawing. I did a drawing in Australia. Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
That looks like San Francisco. Disney World, Orlando, Florida, 1974. So you organized them at all?
Well, yeah, I tried
at some point.
Yeah, I tried to get them organized, and one of my husband's boys, he was a scout leader for about 5 years until my oldest son made Eagle Scout, and then he quit. He couldn't do it anymore. Yeah.
This says Greece and Jordan.
Yeah. Okay.
Look at these people. Look at these faces. Oh my gosh, these are great.
Yeah. It was. Then
yeah. Look at the movement in that. I love that. Yeah. That's great. These Greek people dancing, you can just feel that movement.
Yeah. I have a grandson that's only 5 years old. A great grandson that's only 5 years old. We brought him over here, and he's going to a private school. He's so grown up, this little kid. He came in and he brought a box of all his drawings that he was doing at school. I want to show you these, he said. So I looked through all his things, and then after a while, we were here. Before he left, he came in here, he says, I want to see your drawings. I want to see your work, he said. So, wow. So I looked, well, what do you want to see? So we're looking up at the books there, and his mother was reading one on Yosemite. Oh, I want to see that, he said. So she pulled out the Yosemite book, and he recognized all the mountains in there and the waterfall. I was so surprised. Yeah. I was 5 years old, and he knew he knew the names of the mountains that I'd sketched. Wow.
Books of buildings worldwide. I mean, it amazes me, the volume of work that she's done. Buffalo. That looks like Seattle.
Yeah. Some of them I haven't signed, and I haven't put any dates on it, unfortunately.
Oh, this is a June 26th of 01.
Oh.
Carl Larson.
Oh, that's after oh.
Royal Victoria Hospital, Montreal, July 30th,
wow.
1976.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah.
That looks like San Francisco. Disney World, Orlando, Florida, 1974.
Yeah.
That's cool. Sideways. Yeah. Tons of bridges and people, water, seascapes, rivers, boats. So you organized them at all?
Well, yeah, I
at
tried
some
to.
point?
Yeah, tried to get them organized, and one of my husband's Boy Scout, he was a scout leader for about 5 years until my oldest son made Eagle Scout, and then he quit. You know, he
That's great. These Greek people dancing, you can just
Oh yeah,
feel that
yeah.
movement.
I have a grandson that's only 5 years old. A great.
Oh, that's a little book. Oh, this is not drawings.
Was that the one? What's that one?
Oh, these are letters.
Oh yeah, that's it. I think that.
Oh, Flo Spanier's trip to Australia. Viewpoints, how two people
Yeah.
opposite in their views and both be correct.
Yeah. A couple of years, 3 years ago, and while we were there, they had his brother and sister-in-law lived up in the 14th floor of a condo, and the floor above them was a big room that anybody that lives there could use for a big party if they wanted. It was fantastic, a huge room. Had a kitchen on the side and a place, you know, so we could have a big potluck. So that's what we did, and he had 45 of his family came there for this big celebration, and so I was there and I had my iPad with me, and one of his cousins does sculpture, and so he goes to Paris to have it. He belongs to an art group there in Paris, so I talked to him, and he says, "Oh, I'd sure like to see your art," he said. So I says, "Oh well," and I showed him my iPad. Well, I've got it here on the iPad. So he looked through them, and after because it's loaded, you know, with stuff, and you know, early stuff that I don't even have any in my possession anymore, really, and so he's looking through that, and then he said, "You know, you could join my club in Paris," he said. He said, "Wow," and I thought, "Wow, what a compliment he had."
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
yeah, and but then you'd have to go to Paris, he'd say.
Well, I can manage.
Yeah.
I want you to show Patrick the statue that you did of your husband.
Oh yeah, that's out in.
Because lest you think that Flo's art is only in sketching and painting,
Yeah.
she's very.
Yeah.
And this
yeah.
is, we have to go outside to
Yeah.
see this.
Whoops. I gotta make
watch
sure.
out. This is such a sweet little place. Look at this.
Yeah.
Isn't that wonderful?
That's a caricature of my husband. It looks like him. The only thing, he doesn't have ears like that, you know. But I called it a leprechaun because he's half Irish and half German. And when he was ornery, I'd say, "Be Irish." Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's just
Because
that amazes
like I
me.
told you, I like the Irish. Yeah. Yeah.
Look at that. Look at that.
And
That's
so,
just,
but there, see, he had a sense of humor. He had his hand up there, and he has the finger. He's holding the finger up, and he says, and he's smiling because he thinks that look at all those, they don't even know I'm giving him the finger, he says. So that's what that's what he's thinking. Yeah.
I love the way you did his feet. It's just, and this one little leaf off of the grapes, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
Just amazing.
He's funny, yeah. That was, yeah. I have one sculpture I should show you that I did, that I didn't have a model for. It's a nude, and I did it in porcelain, and I've got it. My daughter, this was in 1944. I made this,
Oh,
and
that's the year of my birth. So it's almost 78 years old. Show it to us.
Yeah, I'll have to show. It's inside.
Okay.
And with her, and I said, "Well, will you take care of this for me? I'm afraid my kids are gonna break it." And so she took it. I never saw it again. I never saw it again. I saw her for many, many years. On her 90th birthday, I went over and here she had it sitting on her coffee table. Ah! Yeah. And I said, and she looked at me and she says, "You can't have it."
Oh,
Yeah.
she knew she had stolen it from you.
Yeah.
But you got it back when she died?
When she died, her kids brought it over to me. But I did go, yeah, it's right here.
Oh.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
You could take it
You,
out.
and you can see the break.
And you can see where I signed it. In the back, you can see where I wrote 144, the year 44. I didn't want to put 19, I just put 44.
Okay, let me see where that is.
It's in the back.
I have it on. Oh, right here.
Yeah, at the bottom.
Yeah, Flo Spanier 44.
Yeah, 1944.
Yeah.
And then at that time, I thought, oh, well, after all, she's had it so many years. So I didn't,
Flo,
I went
that
home
is
and then
wonderful.
later I went to visit her again. And I said, I'd like to borrow it. I want to I'll give it back. So she said, so I did borrow it, and I took it to Berkeley and had a model, and I had a bronze made out of it.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's over here. It's here. But, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But it's dark. I wish I had it light because it's so dark. But they made a, yeah.
Wow, that's great.
So you got, yeah. But I didn't have a model for that. My brother, who was 14 years old, posed for me so I could get
At
the
least
arms
the body
and the legs.
form, yeah.
That. And then the rest of it was my imagination. And that's the way I wished that I wished I had a boob like that myself.
I started to say, she's very well built.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought, yeah, that was oh dear. But you could, I even put her toes in there.
Yeah,
And her fingers and her eyes.
Yeah.
I'm amazed how much detail I put in there.
Yeah.
In this thing.
And how old were you when you did that?
Let's see what I was
it
in
44?
1944. I was 20. Let's see. So I was 22, 26,
Well, what
23,
year were you born?
21.
Oh, 21.
44.
Yeah.
So it was about
You're 23.
22. Yeah. So, yeah. So, but we stayed married in spite of everything for 58 years.
Oh.
That's a long.
Yeah.
Because I always believed you're always true to the person. You don't divorce. I always thought, never do that. But when he was getting real old, and I'll put this down here. Yeah, well, later on, when he was losing it, then I thought that he wasn't treating me very good. Mm-hmm. And I thought he wanted a divorce, was purposely doing that so I would get a divorce.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I have a grandson that's only 5 years old. A great grandson that's only 5 years old. We brought him over here, and he's going to a private school. He's so grown up, this little kid. He came in and he brought a box of all his drawings that he was doing at school. I want to show you these, he said. So I looked through all his things, and then after a while, we were here, before he left, he came in here, he says, I want to see your drawings. I want to see your work, he said. So, wow. So I looked, well, what do you want to see? So we're looking up at the books there, and his mother is reading one of Yosemite. Oh, I want to see that, he said. So she pulled out the Yosemite book, and he recognized all the mountains in there and the waterfall. I was so surprised. Yeah. I was 5 years old, and he knew he knew the names of the mountains that I had sketched. Wow. People today, you'll find all kinds. And that was, so which person do you want to be like in your life? It's a lesson.